Thank you for taking the time to watch my presentation here on culturally responsive teaching. I'm very proud of the work that my students have done, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of the highlights with you. Meadowbrook High School is about 45% Latinx and 45% African American. That may be changing just a little bit. Nearly three quarters qualify for free reduced lunch, and we have approximately 450 ESL students. I teach all ESL. I have four classes of World History 1, which are primarily level twos this year, and one service learning class. And I'm going to talk a lot about the work that the service learning class has done in the second year of my action research. So in the first year, I focused a lot on just a sense of belonging. And so I was looking at what is a strong sense of belonging, what is the effect of that on academic performance and motivation to attend class. So I did see a strong correlation between when students felt that sense of belonging and attendance, which in the class that I tracked, um, the attendance was nearly 96%. Um, And so I did a number of different things early in the year before we were out virtual with COVID. But primarily, it was through just an abundance of small belonging cues, but also using this magic feedback, which there's been research on this, that if you share with students, I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations for you, and I know you can reach them. That embedded in that is the belonging signals that you're part of the group. This group is special, and we have high standards, and I believe that you can reach those standards. So I looked at data from a mini survey and then more qualitative data in some meetings that I had with students. And I did see that uh, their sense of belonging did increase as they started to receive more of these belonging cues. And that was most of what I focused on in the first year. In the second year, really worked more with the service learning students, which I had almost all of them in history the year before. And the way the class was designed, it was going to have a partner class, English. They all had to take two English classes anyway. And in the English class, they would focus more on culturally responsiveness through Latin American authors and just things that where they would see themselves in the curriculum and the issues and things. And at the last minute, that class did not happen for various reasons, which were very disappointing. But I had to then use the first part of service learning to kind of cover some of um, the curriculum around race and racism and institutional racism and prejudice and just learning more and more about that. So you can see some of the sources that I used over on the right. Um, and so once we grew in our understanding of what more institutional or structural racism was, then we began to create more of the work of what can we do to try to make some positive changes. So the framework that we used was James Banks' social action approach to multicultural education. And so helping students acquire knowledge, values, and skills they need to participate effectively in social change. So that was kind of the main idea. There's a couple of quotes there I think are very important. Um, the instructional goals in the approach are to educate students for social criticism and social change, and then to teach them decision making skills. So, these are all high level skills that benefit students, not only in school, but in life. And the decision making process enables students to really synthesize knowledge and values, determine what actions, if any, they wanted to take. So that's really where we spent a lot of time was understanding things a little better, and then figuring out what can we do to try to help make that situation better. So, um, I had a number of questions in a survey, things like how much would you say school allows you to have a voice in school policies and rules? And you can see the numbers there. How do you feel you have, how well do you feel you have an understanding of racial inequities and social issues? And I can say early on, they really didn't understand from a, more of a systemic level, inequities or racism at all. It was more just a personal level, but they grew a lot in their ability to just see things, and why is a particular group hurt more by this rule or policy than other groups? And to what degree do you feel that there are inequities at your school? And so, of course, as Latinx, they're in a uh, predominantly American culture, language, food, different things like that. So, of course, they see a lot of inequities. And so they wanted to try to address some of these. So, one of the things they did very early on was they learned that many of them, almost all, were on track to get a standard diploma. They didn't even know there was an advanced diploma. So they started asking a lot of questions about this in the scheduling process, and you know, why didn't they realize that there were these other, diploma types and honors courses and dual enrollment courses, and none of them, had any of those opportunities. So, um, along with two other ESL teachers, Sarah Glass and Julie Cloninger, we presented with the students at the Merck conference. It was titled Challenges ELs Face in Educational Opportunities That Lead to Being College and Career Ready. So you can play the video and kind of hear from them about their feelings about some of that. And so another thing was that they decided that they needed to try to communicate directly with ESL parents. So we created Facebook Live events and did two or three of these different events where they would just talk a lot about U.S. education system and how it's different, and what things are important. And they explained a lot of the these differences in terms of classes and tech program, and you can get college credit and dual enrollment if you're taking those classes in high school. So they try to provide a lot of useful information to parents. We also created a video and then partnered with some of our guidance counselors and ESL teachers to actually go into the Google Meets, because we were all virtual at the time, show the video, answer questions, but be there to help students as they are selecting what type of a degree would I want to pursue, what classes do I want to take, what electives, do I want honors classes, am I interested in the tech program? And so they literally help students fill out their cards to make sure that they were getting the classes and things that they wanted. And again, you can watch that video later. Um, Dr. Jessica Costa, ESL specialist with the Virginia Department of Education, learned about this. She actually came in and was part of one of our class sessions and just talking about different opportunities and things. So together, they partnered with her to present a webinar on the same kinds of things, titled For Students by Students, and had over 50 different students and educators from around the state that um, watched that webinar, and I'm sure many others have watched it since then, just going to the link. So again, that was another thing they were able to do to try to make a positive difference. One of the things that came up over and over was just cafeteria and the kind of food and stuff. And so, they decided to create a survey. I think over 115 students filled out the survey. And so they took that data and we met with people from food services. And that was a very positive experience because food services appreciated the way that they went about that. They just weren't complaining, but they offered solutions. They provided data. They actually even presented economic terms. They thought that we would make a lot more money, that there were approximately 365 people who would eat lunch if it were food that they were more accustomed to eating at home and that they liked. And so we will be doing some taste testing in May. And, it looks very promising that by the next school year that we'll be offering at least some of the items that were on the survey and that students were recommending, that we serve. So lesson learned. So I definitely learned that, when you give students a framework like Banks' social action approach and the opportunity to engage in authentic work that's meaningful to them and that they have, that there's a sense of value or importance about, that they can do amazing things and make a positive contribution to their school community. We also learned that although we've had a lot of support, a lot of teachers and admin that have been 100% behind this work, that when you start to uncover inequities, that sometimes that people don't want to hear about that, and that there have been times where some of that is we'd rather just pretend like it doesn't exist and try to do the really hard work of taking those steps towards making positive changes. Um, and if we're going to really truly implement culturally responsive teaching, then we must create opportunities for these linguistically and culturally diverse students that we have to examine systems within the school with a critical lens and a social conscious, and then teach them the decision making skills that they need so that we can make the positive changes that really lead to creating better schools and better communities. Um, I'm not going to read all of these, but just taking students' quotes on different things like what was the impact of the class, what did you learn from it, definitely they learned that it's important to, when you see something, to um, have a voice, and that collectively, when you have a lot of voices, that people will listen. And sometimes people are more willing to listen to students than they are adults. So I think we've seen that. Students have grown personally just in, you know, feeling like that they need to not be so shy or to be more willing to make a stand or to say something. Um, and I think that the biggest things are beyond engagement is that agency, is that they truly understand that their actions can lead to positive changes. And I think that's probably the best thing that's come out of the class. So just to wrap it up, our school, not just Meadowbrook and Chesterfield County, but schools across America are becoming more linguistically, culturally diverse. And we need to change our teaching methods. And we're really learning more about culturally responsive teaching and what that means. But I think it's more of a mindset of how do we look at our students and families? Do we look at the things that they lack? Is it predominantly deficit thinking, or do we realize that our students come with really amazing abilities and skills and families as well? And so, in making that shift, yes, they need a lot of help. We need to provide the services and the scaffolding and all, and we need to leverage what they have, those skills and abilities for learning. And so that really is what culturally responsive teaching is all about. It's a mindset shift, but it's also learning the strategies that can help them to be really successful. And I think when we do that, we're going to find that we're extremely blessed to have that diversity, and that is something that can make us make for not only a better school but a better community.